Welcome to CESMII Studios in our broadcast of 6 Degrees of Smart Manufacturing. I am Conrad Leva.
And I'm Mike Yost.
And in this series, we cover different perspectives and topics on smart manufacturing from the many points of view of manufacturing leaders, practitioners, engineers, integrators, consultants, and educators, the many people involved on the smart manufacturing journey. Last time, we had a retrospective look at smart manufacturing in 2020. And today we're having a 20-minute chat looking ahead at what is hot for 2021 in smart manufacturing. We're excited about the progress in many of the dimensions of smart manufacturing, and we hope you will also be energized as we discuss many breakthroughs that are just around the corner, thanks to the many people working in the ecosystems towards realizing this smart manufacturing vision.
Absolutely. And like you said, Conrad, we wrapped up in November taking a look at the year, things that were discussed this year, and really taking a look at the webcast series over the past year and a half. We've spent the last year and a half asking people from across industry to tell us what smart manufacturing looks like to them. And as we concluded in our last session, we believe that that time to ask that question is now behind us. We believe that smart manufacturing has gone mainstream, and we think it's time to go deeper and start to lift the hood on smart manufacturing and start digging deeper about the how people are actually delivering value and how they're actually addressing the challenges that are in front of us. So that has served us well. We have upwards of 40 recordings with domain experts and thought leaders and practitioners from all across industry answering those previous questions. So we encourage you to check that out on the website and check it out on our YouTube channel. But now it's time for us to frame this up and move from that conversation into a deeper dive on how people are actually getting work done.
Yeah, and we are definitely looking under the hood in 2021. We are exploring with our network of subject matter experts how smart manufacturing is innovating routines, practices, connections, and norms. Because if we're going to go mainstream, right, it means that we are re-engineering our processes. We're not just working to the old routines and norms. We have new and improved ones. Today, we have our Christmas sweaters on and our hot chocolate here. And we're giving you a sneak peek of 2021 based on our own predictive analysis and algorithms of the trends that we've been seeing this year. Mike and I have put together a list of possible headlines for 2021 to help our discussions today.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a lot to take in here. We're going to have a nice conversation here over the next 15 minutes or so, as Conrad talked about, using all the predictive analytics that the two of us could muster, and talk through a number of these topics, what's in front of us. We would ask you to do a couple of things. First of all, if you see headlines here that you think are your favorites, please use the question and answer, the Q&A feature within the webcast to tell us which ones you think at the top of your list, things that you want to hear about, things that should be discussed as we go into the new year. If there are things that are missing, you have headlines of your own that you think should be listed here, then throw those out as well. And as always, if you have questions, just go ahead and throw them right into the mix and for us to consider, and we'll keep the conversation going. So as I take a look at these headlines, and we went back and forth on these and framed this up, I mean, the first one that jumps out to me, Conrad, is what in the world are we talking about with the birth of a digital sextuplet in a Florida factory? What is it? Where are you going with that?
Well, I thought that might get your attention, so I'm glad it did. But, well, this for me is about the topic of the digital twin. And we tend to talk about the digital twin like it's one thing. And the truth is that there are many digital twins, quadruplets, quintuplets, sextuplets, whatever. But the idea that there's many different applications and models that need to come together with a unifying information model. And finally, in 2021, we're seeing this talk, it's maturing to that level where we're not talking so general about a digital twin as some ideal kind of thing, but as a collection of systems, as a framework that will enable these virtual models to work together and exchange data with the same physical assets. Um, so because an example of the different kinds of models that come together are 3D mechanical models, machine learning and physics-based models, and process simulation models. But what unifies all this is that they are all trying to be synced with the physical counterparts so that then we can have very specific use cases of analysis to be done that helps us to make better decisions in real time about what needs to be done to address any issues and bad trends that are coming up.
So do you think people are getting it, right? There's been talk of, like you said, singularly, there's a digital twin, right? We've talked about a broader digital tapestry, right? So you see all of these data-centric flows essentially and intersecting and coming together. Do you think people are getting it and we'll be able to drive into how that reality is coming to be, or are we still pre-chasm?
I think people are getting it. We're moving beyond that early stage of hype, and now we have serious industry standard groups like ISO, IIC, ONG, Platform 4.0, CESMII, and a new digital twin consortium, that all organizations that are working towards putting these frameworks for the digital twin in place. And so I think 2021 will be a year of clarity in the language, clarity in the initiatives, and how all this needs to come together to realize that vision. So
good. I certainly hope so.
But I also am curious about some of these headlines over here, and one that catches my attention is, Mike, how many platforms do we need in manufacturing?
Oh, thanks for throwing that one to me, Conrad.
I'm not going to throw you the easy ones. I want the easy ones for me.
Yeah, well, we can answer that question in 20 minutes, can't we? No, but I think it ties in with the previous conversation, right? So many different areas. I think everybody's recognizing the need for platforms, whether it's, again, as you mentioned previously, a singular platform, or if everybody looks, more functionally and looking toward platform type solutions that that they use in their functions, and how they can organize and intersect and hopefully interoperate and be secure. And so I don't have a good answer to tell you there's one or there's 12 or there's I know it's not the hundreds and hundreds that are available today, right? I mean, we see so many, so much talk about platforms, and I know we don't need hundreds of platforms for a manufacturer, but it's absolutely a priority in 2021 to have this conversation much more deeply, so that we can give people more insights to answer that question for themselves.
I think that will be basically the agenda for next year. Will be more clarity in this area. Yeah, because there's many points of view, like you said, on what even a platform is, So we have seen in our talks, like the definition of platform is as a group of functionality or solutions, maybe targeted to a specific use case or user group. Things like the connected worker is viewed as a platform. Things like asset optimization is viewed as a platform. Advanced process control, or maybe digital modeling and simulation. The digital twin is another platform that brings things together. It's systems and it's infrastructure, threading and data exchanges that brings things together, but also technologies threaded together to provide a solution. So that's one view of the platform. I've also seen the view of a platform more in the business model sense, right? Where products are moving from products to a more service model to a more ecosystem model, you know, and that whole idea of platform as a platform for an ecosystem. That's also interesting. So maybe the word platform by itself is not enough, and we need to start qualifying and spending a little more quality time with that word.
Yeah, I think, again, there's plenty to chew on, plenty to talk about. We've had a lot of conversations even internally here about,
Yeah.
you know, digital fabric and infrastructure and things like that, as opposed to, you know, platform terminology. So plenty more to talk about there.
Yeah.
But let's move on from that, because to me, the idea of building digital bridges for smart manufacturing pops out to me. So what do you think we need to do on that front?
Well, and that picture of bridges and infrastructure, right? And we hear a lot of political momentum behind infrastructure, national infrastructure in many directions, right? They're talking literally about bridges sometimes, but it brings to me in mind also the digital world and the digital infrastructure required to thread manufacturing together, and that's another platform that is needed. And a lot of people think that that problem has been tackled already, and that we have good digital bridges for manufacturing out there. But the truth is that we don't, and that really was brought to light by the pandemic and the immediate response and the need for better communication in the supply chain. And we talked in one of our episodes, I encourage everybody to look it up, about how big companies like Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, General Mills are working with CESMII towards putting infrastructure that is part of one of the proposals for the National Manufacturing Guard, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And I think what's evident, it shows, like you said, that there's the need for this, and that need scales, right? That need scales all the way down through the supply chain to manufacturers large and small, because as we've seen with the disruption through the pandemic of this year, they're all critical parts of the supply chain, right? And so having that infrastructure in place, having those initiatives in flight, right? The work, and again, I agree with you. I would have folks definitely watch and learn what they can about the National Manufacturing Guard and those initiatives put forward by the CESMII CEO and his counterparts at the other institutes to really build out these types of, I guess, as we framed it here, these digital bridges.
Yeah, because the truth is that beyond control towers and coordinating demand signals and logistics, there's not a lot of infrastructure, a way to talk about classifying process capabilities, about connecting supplier and partners in new ways and innovative ways out there to respond to these resiliency use cases, to respond to changing markets.
And the comfort level of people being willing to share that information, right? I mean, I grew up in the automotive industry, and anytime that type of information about my capabilities and my cost performance and things like that were shared, there was concern that it was going to be used against them in the supply chain. So there's a lot of work still to be done there.
So that was a change, and that's a change that we hope continues next year, that we see more companies open to this dialogue, to doing it right. Yes, you have to consider security. You need to have that confidence in secure communications, and intellectual property is being protected so that people only see the information they need to see. But there is a recognition that there's a lot of information that we can share in smart ways that don't impact our intellectual property. At least people are now willing to talk about it. And some of that really is out of necessity that has been brought out by the current situations. Yeah.
Certainly.
So that's a great trend. And but we need people that can put this kind of solution together, right? To scale it into the supply chain. So something very interesting here in this list to me is the systems integrator dilemma. What is this dilemma, Mike?
Oh my goodness, yes. I've been, I guess, passionate about this for some time, right? That we've talked about, and we see so much activity at a local level, regional level, national level, to show manufacturers the value to understand how to move forward and make some of these changes. Not only adopting technology, but adopting the mindset and moving into the age of having these types of technology solutions. And as we work, in Los Angeles County, I mean, there's 12,000 small to medium-sized manufacturers, right? If all 12,000 or 6,000 of them showed up at the door tomorrow and said, all right, I'm ready to start, we don't have enough people to help them scale, right? To engage them and help them. And that's where our whole ecosystem plays, right? Because it's more than just the systems implementation side. There's an education and an awareness, and certainly our ecosystem and CESMII directly plays a role on that front. But when you get to looking at scale and saying, hey, how are we going to help the manufacturers out there that want to deploy these types of systems, we need one heck of a lot more competent, qualified systems integrators.
And that reminds me of a talk we had with Tim Shop earlier this year from Abbott, and how he was telling us that the system integrator landscape is changing, and they're having to learn not only new ways to do smart manufacturing connectivity, and move beyond some of the old ways of threading systems together and create much more dynamic ways to thread systems together. But they're also having to learn how to do more work remotely with customers. And there's been great strides there. I mean, remote assistance in general is a big movement here in 2021.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, this dilemma is something that I've been talking about for a long time, and just looking at it from a scale perspective, like I talked about, doesn't even get into the point that you're bringing up, that they have a dilemma of their own, and that their model of engaging, how they sell, how they deploy, how they service their customers has been completely disrupted by not being able to send people on site and the travel restrictions and those sorts of things. So, we don't have to stick exactly to our 20-minute window here, Conrad, but we're never going to get through all of these topics that we've listed here. So I think if we could maybe take a step back and say, if you're going to say to everybody, regardless of how we frame up the headline or what have you, something that's an absolute imperative from your perspective that you think needs to be discussed next year, what would that be from what's listed here?
Well, I think something that jumps out as a more general trend, right, is that I think that the workforce is moving to the center of the conversation next year, right? I mean, that we saw the start of that this year, but I think there's a couple of dimensions of that. I mean, it should have always been in the center, but smart manufacturing, and I know you and me agree on that, but automation has been at the center for the last few years. But that's one of the things the pandemic has also brought about, and we see a lot of initiatives like connected worker, remote assistance, remote work monitoring with machine vision and things like that are moving forward with the worker at the center. But I also see a lot of education related initiatives for the workforce. Yep. And a couple of these headlines here have to do with this, how engineers and statisticians and data scientists need to work closer together and really exchange knowledge among each other, because smart manufacturing is really about breaking down the old silos. those silos of information didn't just happen. They happened because we had actual walls between people and processes and departments, and there was an over the wall kind of handoff of documents between departments, right? So to break that down, it means that we need to understand more what's over the wall. We need to get rid of that wall. We need to start talking the same language, understand what every role does in the business. And that means more cross-discipline education.
Well, it's nice to see that we didn't have on that list the divide between IT and engineering. So hopefully that means in the mainstream that we're evolving and moving to even more roles that again
I know we've talked about that line between IT and OT for many years, and I think another thing contributing to that is that a lot of this technology is becoming more affordable, and we have a whole group of hobbyist technologists out there on the plant floors that are grabbing Raspberry Pis that have become very affordable and are able to connect sensors to their plant equipment and then just connect it to the cloud and work around IT. Now, they've been working around IT and doing shadow IT activities because, operations, we just need to get the work done. But I think there's a lot of opportunity, and we're going to see more of this next year, where manufacturing is really embracing that talent pool of hobbyists and turn them into citizen technologists equipped with the right tools to do it the right way and become part of that landscape.
Yeah, I agree completely, right? I mean, manufacturers are problem solvers, so they're going to solve problems, right? And whether that's in a hobbyist way or it's in a sanctioned way that's using a platform that ties in with a digital whatever, right? And I think that's where the technology providers and CESMII and others come into play to give those tools and allow people to be those problem solvers in that way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to make sure you have time to also say what is the top thing for you to highlight here for 2021?
Yeah, just really quickly from my perspective, it probably captured best in the top left headline, "No manufacturer left behind," is that we need to continue to drive the dialogue that while smart manufacturing is very tactical and will bring specific results in specific areas, it is also transformational. And if organizations aren't thinking about how they're changing their operations, and you started off with the framework at the beginning, talking about the innovating the processes and routines and norms and things like that, it is an opportunity to transform and an opportunity to innovate. And if manufacturers are not doing that, I think there's a real chance that some will be left behind while others go and do. And that puts those companies at risk. It puts the communities that they serve at risk. And it puts the whole nation at risk.
And no manufacturer left behind is also hinting at the need to democratize smart manufacturing and make it more accessible to the masses, right? And that's a big part of CESMII's mission. And there's going to be a lot more talk about that next year. But I like that you talked about smart manufacturing being a transformational initiative, and we'll provide more clarity on that because I think you're moving the clock of me there.
Sorry to give you the hook, but we are way over our 20-minute allotment here. Plenty to talk about.
Okay. Well, since you are moving us along here, what we really want is for you to engage with us, and the LinkedIn group is a place where we can have these dialogues. Please let us know, like Mike pointed out, not just during this webcast and any of our webcasts, but anytime. Join the community. We'll accept you right away. And that's the place to have those old hallway conversations we were having in conferences that we're not having now. So we need a place to have those conversations. We need a way to know what are the topics that you really want, that you're engaged at your companies right now that you want to talk about, that you want us to talk about, because we are ready to bring subject matter experts from our ecosystems here and put them in front of you to help clarify what they're doing. But we need to hear from you too and get your point of view there also. So that's an important place.
Absolutely. And all of that Conrad talked about plays into the format that we created when we started the 6 Degrees of Smart Manufacturing webcast series, right? To invite people in, to keep this light, keep this topical, and be able to pull in as many different people with as many different perspectives as possible to share their viewpoints, because we believe that's how we're going to grow the knowledge that we all need to democratize smart manufacturing and make it the norm as quickly as possible. We want to introduce and let everybody know that we are going to add another webcast series in parallel with the 6 Degrees webcasts that we're calling the nth degree of smart manufacturing. And the idea there is that we're able to take the discussion to whatever level is required, to the nth degree, to get to specifics, to go deeper. So instead of a regular rhythm of 20-minute discussions like we've been having, it could be 45 minutes, could be an hour, it could be even 90-minute type conversations to go much deeper or much higher, depending on how you look at it, into the topics of interest for everybody.
Yeah, so at 6 degrees, we're looking under the hood, and nth degree, we're taking that engine block out and really getting there. And it's really the place to be here in this ecosystem and learning firsthand from the subject matter experts. We're going to be delivering this more on demand. It's going to give us more flexibility to schedule experts, because sometimes, these are hard to get to schedule people, and this will give us a lot of more flexibility too. So I think it will allow us to even expand further the number of people that can participate and share the knowledge. We have a lot of people that want to share the knowledge, but maybe this time of the day doesn't work for them. So that's going to be a lot of more potential to provide more clarity and more in-depth coverage on these very complex topics. We're trying to make them easier for you to absorb and to democratize in your own companies. So please make sure that you bookmark our series and our community over there on your browser as one of your favorites for next year. And let's everybody have a happy new year.
Yes, let's usher out 2020 and all it's been, and welcome in the new 2021. Look forward to seeing everybody in the new year. So take care, everybody.
Happy New Year.